Okay, get that video to stop. What I'm doing is everybody get in there. Getting all connected. Everybody found it okay. Great. Okay, so it's almost kind of harder later because it's the only one. So I believe we have Jacob. Is that who we have? And where are you, Jacob? You already did yours. Didn't you do your presentation? Sorry, he's so close to you too. So we need to show him how to remote control the Zoom session. You're already on it. Well, never mind. Okay, so you're all set. He's got this. Okay, Jacob's gonna give us a quick introduction. Take it over, sir.
Yeah. This is my presentation. Hi, my name is Jacob Bowers. Education goal, I'm currently trying to get my associate's degree in CIS, Computer Information Science. I might continue a 4-year degree in the future, but for now I don't know. Some interesting facts on what I do for fun is I love computers, I love building them, I love music, I love Discord, I have a Discord server, I love to play games on my free time a lot. And some of my favorite games are Destiny 2 and Gary's Mod, and I love playing VR games also. And yeah, that's about it.
Give him a hand, yay! Now, do we have anybody else that needs to do their own intro? I don't have anybody else down. Remember, if you haven't submitted that presentation assignment, get it submitted, because I have to have them out there so I can look at you guys and see who you are and things like that. So try to remember what's going on later. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Let's see which one is showing up there. It's important I share the one that is showing up on the big screen or else everything gets all messed up. All right, so we're ready to look at variables and expressions, and I looked at the 83 slide PowerPoint, and I looked at the old book, and I looked at the new book, and I think the best thing for us to do is just jump right in and create some code that has some variable declarations in it, don't you? So let's open Visual Studio. Can you see that? Tell me if you can't see it, because oops, I got 2019. Can't do that. Not yet, anyways. Find 2017. So I've got Visual Studio open. The first thing I'd like to do is create a new project. So what should I do? Control-Shift-N. Yeah, you guys wouldn't be able to see that. What else could I do that people could see on my screen when I were making a video or something?
File, yeah.
File, new project. Control-Shift-N is really nice. Any other ways? See any other ways? Sometimes people get mad at me because they're like, I just want to know a way. Sorry, that's not how it is. We have lots of ways. What's another way? This one right here, create a new project. So all of them are fine. It's all fine. I'm going to create a new project then. Do what?
There's a shortcut on the quick access menu.
regular view that just is a hotkey for new project.
Up here,
Underneath it, right underneath it. That one, right there.
new project. Awesome. I didn't even know that one was there. Sometimes you'll have to point me in a direction because there's so many ways you can do things. Okay, we want to create another console app, and we're going to use .NET Framework, and we want to check our location. And again, mine has switched to the C drive. That's not where I want it. I want it to be on my OneDrive. So I'm going to browse and go find that folder that I created last time. And select that folder so that I've got my code in the right place for me. And for today, I'm going to create some of the Chapter 3 example projects that they have in our textbook. And we'll do a little bit more with them, change them up a little bit, but that way you'll have something to refer to if you want to experiment with them later. So I'm going to start with Chapter 3, and this is, of course, Chapter 3 in this big one, the C#7 Pro book. And the first one I want to create, let me see. They want us to look at another kind of hello world. Let's call it first app. And I think that matches up with our textbook pretty well. Now, as we're working with Visual Studio, before we get into that code, there's some things that we can do to change the appearance of the IDE, the editor. A lot of you might have picked the dark theme. I usually pick the light theme because I think it's easier to see on the projector. But if you guys want me to switch, let me know. But I like some other things that I can do too. So let's look at some Visual Studio options before we start coding. If you look under your Tools menu, you'll see that the first option lets you get tools and features, which are Visual Studio tools, like if you wanted to add a feature to Visual Studio that wasn't installed, you could use that option. I want to look at extensions and updates. My mouse won't cooperate. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to find something that would color code my curly braces so that I could, you know, line them up a little bit easier as I'm looking at things. So I could search for that. Before I search, though, I need to check where I'm searching. Over here on the left, if I just search right now, I'm only going to be searching the things that I have installed. So I need to click on the online things or items, and then I can search for, I don't know, colorized curly braces. There's probably lots of options for us. And there might be some that, you know, are just really, really excellent. We've used this VS401 the past couple of semesters, and it's worked really well. So I'm going to go ahead and grab it because sometimes when you have 20 new people, you don't want to try all sorts of experimental things, but you guys are welcome to try any of those that you like. Now, when I click download, notice it says my changes will be scheduled. Their modifications are going to be installed when Visual Studio is closed. So I'm going to go ahead and close this window. Has everybody got that all right? Did you find it? Has everybody found it okay before I close out? So I'm going to go ahead and close. I'm going to close Visual Studio. Now the installer is running. I'm going to tell it to go ahead and modify. And let me know if you didn't get it, and we'll get you all fixed up. And it should be done. So I'm going to open Visual Studio again. In my project, and again, we have all sorts of different ways we can do that. Now you should see some color-coded curly braces. So I can see that my open and close curly brace for my main method are this lime green. My class statement has this pink, and my namespace has the orange. So hopefully help me keep those lined up a little bit better if I were to accidentally get rid of a set. Now, if you don't like it, that's all right. Some people don't like their curly braces to be colorful. I could get rid of it too, so totally up to you. Just something to try to help us notice those things a little bit more, get used to them so they don't cause us any trouble, because they're really not important in our code. They're just like the beginning and the ending, just the delineation. So we don't want them to cause us trouble that messes us up. Okay, so far here we have our main, and we want to put in a little teeny bit of code. Bless you. I want to use the console class library, and we used that last time. And I'm going to use the write line method. And we saw that with the write line, we could write out some output, and we used it to output our hello world message. This time we're going to do a couple of messages. I'm going to have some stars. It looks like about 5 of them. And then my first C# app. And then 5 more stars. I'm going to put my semicolon at the end of my line of code. The using statements up at the top are specifying different class libraries that have code that we're going to use. And if you notice, when you typed in this line of code, the console.write line, this using system line came dark instead of being grayed out like the others. It was grayed out. That's because this line of code is using that library. That's where it's finding that console.write line code to execute. So we could really get rid of these other using statements. They're causing our program to be bigger than it needs to be. They're not really hurting anything. And we could add in a special using statement. That's the using static. And if I put in a static using clause, it basically says everything that's in that console class is now part of this program, and we don't have to specify that keyword console anymore to find those methods. So now I should be able to say write line without putting that keyword console in front of it. So I'll say hello world. So we're going to see all the time in C# code these using statements, and we'll see all sorts of different ones depending on what kind of class libraries the code is using. It's doing, random numbers or different things. But then this using static statement is a little newer, so we might not see it in as many places as we would the using statement. But it makes our code a little bit cleaner, right? We don't have to specify that console keyword before those console commands. So if we're going to be doing a lot of console commands, we can put that using static statement in and just save ourselves a little bit of trouble, and it makes our code a little cleaner for other people to look at too. Now in my program, I'd like to do one more write line, and this time I'm just going to specify no parameter. So what is that going to do? Just an empty line. And oftentimes that's what I want. Okay? So I'm going to run this application and see if it works. Now, if you remember last time, we saw that if we just press start, our console display will flash and then go away. If we press F5, the same thing. But if we press Control F5, our console window will stay, and it'll say press any key to continue. So here's our two messages that we did a write line, my first C# app and the hello world statement. And then this message, press any key to continue, is coming from Visual Studio because we pressed Control F5 to run it. Making sense to everybody? See what we're doing with our code. All right, let's do a read line to wait for the user to press a key. And so since we used that using static statement, our read line statement again does not have to have that console keyword at the beginning of it. So now I can run without using the Control F5, and my console screen should stay for me to see what my message is. And I'll see it. Okay, a few notes that they give us in the book, some things that are really important. You've probably already noticed C# is case sensitive. So main, uppercase, like we have here, is not the same as the word main with the lowercase. If I try to run that, I'll get some errors. So case sensitive in all that we do, not just in certain places. So all C# keywords are lowercase. That's just a kind of a rule. And let's see, namespaces, types, and member names start with an initial capital letter, and they use that upper camel case. So like write line, since write line is a method and action, it starts with an uppercase letter and has camel case. So that will really help you a lot with C# if you can remember those conventions, because I know anytime that I'm calling something that is basically a function, it's going to start with an uppercase letter. That can help me a lot when I'm working with. All right, looking at our main, in the REPL that you did, it asks you to memorize that main method header because it's so important. And a lot of the features of this we don't really know anything about yet, right? I just asked you to memorize it so that you could type it in if you had to. So let's look at these things and break them down. We won't really be talking about creating our own methods or functions for a little while, but we want to understand what's going on with our main method header. First of all, right now, the way things are set up, this keyword void means that our main method will not output or return any data. So it's void, it has no data to return. We could change that if we wanted to, and we could change that data type, like say to int for integer, and then our main method would have to have a return statement, and we would have to return some sort of integer. I'm going to Control Z on that. Now the textbook talks about that a little bit and wants you to read through it, and some of the concepts are a little early for working with C#. So just think about how they apply to any language that you've worked with so far. So I can actually change that void to be an integer if I wanted to, and then I could return a value to indicate whether my program completed successfully or not. So oftentimes we just have a return of 0, program completed successfully. If I return 1 or some other value, it did not. So that's a common programming thing that people do. We can also change our main to not have any parameters, which is the specification within the parentheses. So I could delete that out. I'm getting a little bit of a warning here, but everything should be fine. It should still run. I'm going to run it and make sure. Yep, it's all good. So I can have my main method not have any parameters. Bless you. So we can change up that header a little bit for our main method. So don't let it surprise you if you see it somewhere that's a little bit different. They also mention that we can have a main method that returns a task for asynchronous programming, and so that's pretty advanced. Our textbook does talk about that our main could kick off a task, or 10 tasks, and return all of those to another application. They show you some great things inside there, inside a batch file for you to run some simple C# code with and get a return code. And then on page 59, if you're looking at your textbook, they show us a little bit about how to pass arguments into our C# program. So I'm going to press Control-Z and put that parameter back. If I wanted to pass things into my program, my C# program, these data items that I passed in as input to my program would come in through this args variable. This args variable is actually defining an array of strings. So we could actually get data from Visual Studio input into our program. The thing that we want to look at right now is how we would do that in Visual Studio, not necessarily getting a complete understanding of it in C#, because we haven't looked at arrays or even how to declare variables, right? Our book kind of does that some. It tells you a little bit about what you're going to see before you're quite ready for it. So how could I specify these arguments to my program if I wanted to? Let's find it. What I would do, if you look at your project menu, you can go to your project's properties down at the bottom. And again, there's a lot of ways to get to your project's properties. But if I look at my project properties, I have many, many different tabs that I can use to set up data. So this first one for the application, I could change, if I had multiple main methods, I could change which main method was to run at startup. I could change it to be a Windows app. I could change all sorts of different things. Under the Debug tab, I could specify these command line arguments. They want us to put in arguments, and you may have used them before if you were using command line games. They want us to pass in an argument that says God mode, one that says arg1, and one that starts with a slash and says arg2. Bless you. So let's look at our program.cs file. After my read line, I'm going to process those command line arguments. Some of the examples that they show you are pretty advanced, and they're going to show you some looping constructs that, again, we're going to be talking about in a week or two. So don't let these, get you a little bit intimidated, because we'll be working on all of them. First of all, I could use a for loop. And all you want to do here is really copy this code. In this for loop, I'm going to set up an integer named I, and I'm going to start it at a value of 0. And I'm going to run this loop while there are arguments to process. And I'm going to update the value of I each time. In this loop, I'm just going to write out this message. Now I want everybody to copy this code, and then we'll talk about it. Bless you. So in C#, the for statement sets up a loop, and in this loop, with what's within the parentheses is controlling how the loop will start and how many times it will run. What's important to us today is that for each time this loop runs, we're going to write out one of those arguments that we passed in from Visual Studio. I want to put another read line statement after that so that I can see those. If I run that, I should see my hello world message. Then when I press enter or whatever to return control back to my program from that read line statement, the first one, I should see all those arguments that I typed in on the Visual Studio debug screen. So something for us to look forward to in working with loops, and they have some other samples in your textbook that you want to try on your own at home to look at all of those different looping possibilities, and we'll be looking at those in the next chapter as we really get into all of that great programming stuff. They have some other wonderful things that they show you. I'm trying to find our console commands. I know they were in here. Well, I wanted to find how to change the color. So let's look. I'm going to do it up here at the top before I do my very first right line. And I know that if I type the class name console and type a dot, IntelliSense is going to give me a list of all of the properties and methods that I have available from the console class. So I can see there is some things about color. Must be up. There's background color. Let's try it. I'm going to click on that or double click, and I want to set my background color. So I'm going to set that equal to a console color. Now a console color is just another class because everything's a class in C#. And so they made a class and they were like, well, we'll take all of the colors that you can make the console and we'll put those in a class. So let's see, what would I like be? Oh, of course I want that green, right? And I've got to put my colon at the end. And of course I've got to try it and see how that looks. Not too great. Notice how it just does the background behind your letters. That's kind of weird. It used to be that way. Could I change the for color? Do you see a command to do that? Background color, I would think, oh, there's my foreground color. They just messed up the console like with Windows 7, and it only does this little bit of weird coloring instead of the whole thing. So I can get it a little bit different. Not too great, but at least I can fiddle with things a little bit. If I look at the console command, all of the things that have the wrench icon are properties. Those are things I can set equal to something. All of the things that have the square, the cube, those are methods. So I could use those to perform some sort of action, like our right line. That's a method, and that's why we can use it to perform our right action. Let's see, they have a reset color. Have too much. We could change our title, I guess. Not too much fun stuff though. Little bit of things. So I'll delete that console dot because it's giving me an error on the line below because it's just hanging there. Now, anytime we work with a class like that, like the console class, we can look at its members. Oh, yes, sir. What's the matter?
The name I doesn't exist. So whenever project properties, I know how to get out of it. So I'm reading it now. I was like, this was a weird
I know, it's just one of those things that I need to say it. Get stuff out of the thing. Oh, those silly kids. All right, so we've been looking at some stuff that we hadn't seen, some things that are great. This for loop, I told you I would tell you a little bit more about it, what's within the parentheses. This is the kind of statement that can really worry people about C#. And I don't want you to let it worry you because we'll break it down and we'll know what all of the different special characters mean and what's going on here. Whenever we see a square bracket like this around this letter I, that means we're working with an index value in an array. So just like in an array you probably worked with in your intro class, args is an array, and the square brackets tell C# this is an index. When we have curly braces like this within a string, like we do here, we're saying this is a replacement parameter. So what I'm outputting here is this string, arg, colon, space, and then a replacement parameter. It's all within my double quotes. Now, after the double quotes are closed, I have a comma, and then I specify the variable name that I want to use to replace that replacement parameter. So that's an output in C#, and we can get a lot more formatting going on than that. So let's try some. Let's try some numeric data. I think that we should create a new project. So I want to close this one. I'm going to use my file menu and just say close solution. Visual Studio will prompt me if I haven't saved everything. So I can say, yes, I want to save it. Now I want to create a new solution or a new project so that we can keep these things a little separate. This one is going to be, again, a console app, .NET framework, and I want to call it Chapter 3, Numeric, format. Now in this program, we're just going to try outputting data using different numeric formats. And a format is basically just a way of outputting something. I'm going to go ahead and put in that using static system.console because we're going to be doing a lot of write line statements. So in this example, we're just going to try writing output that is of a specific value. So we're going to output the value of 5 nines in various formats. So first, I'm going to use the currency format, which is a C. So I'm going to use that parameter specification, which we just saw in our last program was a number 0 surrounded by curly braces. But I'm going to add a little bit more confusion to it by typing in :C. So I'm saying I want my parameter to be output at this spot in the output, but I want it to be formatted as currency. Now what do I want to output? Those 5 nines. Next, I'm going to do D9 format. Again, I want my output to be in this spot. So my parameter is a placeholder, but I want it to be formatted as whatever in the world D9 is. Next, F3. So you can see how our parameter can specify not only the spot where we want this data to end up in our output line, but also how we want it to be formatted. Now in our book, they get pretty crazy with some things. Let's put in this comment. Notice that upper or lower casing for hex determines if letters are upper or lower. Because they're going to show us how to print out some hex characters here. So I could do E format. And then I could do E format with a lowercase. Which I did above, so I better fix that. I want this one to be uppercase E. And then we can do the same thing with X. So let's copy those two right lines and paste them and make that X. 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 Lastly, our read key. I told you we were going to look at how to declare variables, and so far we haven't, huh? But I think this is really helpful to us because it shows us how we can format our output. And this can be a really hard thing to get used to. So I think this is pretty helpful. I'm going to run this. And now I should see all my different currency formats being output. So notice how currency, that C, just automatically formats things with commas every 3 digits and the $ and 2 decimal places. The D9 format just outputs it, just is like a dump of numbers. And if you notice, if you count, it did 9 digits. So that's why we have the preceding zeros on that one, because we said D9, so it gave us 9 digits. F3 gave us just a fixed number with 3 decimal places. The number format, N, gave us the comma every 3 digits. And the 2 decimal places kind of like currency, but it just left out the $. And then you can see your scientific notation and a hex notation. So lots of different ways we can look at our data. Now, when I'm using all of these right line statements, I could very easily have used a variable for all of that instead of typing that 9999 each time. Let's look at our variable types. Different data types. I'm going to see if I can bring our book up online. So when we create variables using C#, we're going to create variables by specifying their data type and then their identifier or name. It's a hard thing to remember with C#. When they say identifier, they mean the name. And it's an important term to use identifier because it could be something that includes more than just the name. Let's see if I can get to the right spot. No. This thing is split up in sections, and so it makes it hard to get to the right spot. I want page 68. There it is. Page 68 in your textbook shows you a table of the different basic data types. First of all, bool is Boolean. The range is true or false. Byte is 1 byte or 8 bits of data. So the values in a byte data type can be from 0 to 255. An S byte is 1 byte of data, but it's signed. So we lose a few of our values to carry that sign. So our values are -128 to +127. Notice as you look at your C#, whoops, I'm looking at it on the wrong screen. How's that? Notice as you look at your C# data types that most of them have an unsigned and a signed version. And so they weren't really very specific or consistent in how they named them. So for byte, we have byte and S byte. For short, we have short and U short being unsigned. For int, we have int and U int. For an integer data type, we have a pretty good range of values. The 32-bit number, so it can go from this -2 million to +2 million, or in an unsigned mode, it can go up to 4 billion. Yeah, I said million, it's billions. We have long and unsigned long, those are 64-bit numbers, so we can carry a lot of data. The char data type is 1 character, that's our standard character. For float, double, and other decimal data types, you can see that there's really, really large data storage capability. A string is basically an array of char data types. And then we have the object in C#, which is super important because everything can be equated to an object. So these are our different data types. So let's think about it really quick. I'm sure there are more because there are lots of them. But let's think we're going to keep track of information for students in a student information system. So a real easy one. What kind of data type do we want to use for student name?
String.
String. That's good. What kind of data type do we want to use for, let's think, the student payment amount? Float, do what? Decimal?
You would use double as well, but that's more characters than what we need.
Yeah, float's probably big enough. I hope. I don't know. I didn't even make that big. I was thinking about for decimal, I guess we could say like the total debt of all students across the nation. We would maybe need a decimal size data, but we want to be careful if we do need that big and we want to use it. You know, we don't want to have overflow happening. All right, what about a student's age? What would be a good data type? A what? Byte. Okay. Byte would be good. There are some date time data types available in C# that they don't show us, of course, but we have some date time data types available. And of course, we wouldn't really want to carry a student's age. We want to carry their birthday and do some calculations. And we'd have that capability really easy. But you're absolutely right. We'd want to use that byte data type. What about their sex? Which one? Char. It would have to be char, right? Because if I did Boolean, even if we said that there was a limit of 2, which one would be true and which one would be false? We couldn't really identify that easily. So we'd want it to be a char data type so that we could identify a little bit better. Let's see, what about some others? How about their number of credits that they've earned?
We would use a byte unless someone goes to school for 255 credits.
Yeah, I would say we have students easy that exceed that one. He's amazing. Yeah, I know, but you wouldn't believe it. We actually have, I've looked, the first semester I was here, I had a guy who was finishing up his CIS degree, and I looked at his, what do you call it, his history, and he had gone to OTC the first time in the 70s, and it was all on his transcript. So he had gone to OTC, like, I don't know how many times throughout his life. So he would have exceeded that. But I think that you would think that that would be safe. So, yeah, you short should be plenty big enough. Okay, so those are our data types. So whenever we're declaring a variable in C#, let's declare one. I'm going to put it after my read key. I'm going to have data type, and notice how C# recognized that data type and it turned blue right away. I can always tell if I've got something typed wrong when I'm using Visual Studio. Rebel doesn't give you that capability, so that's why it's really good practice, but it's important to kind of use them both so that you don't get frustrated. But I'm going to declare a data type of integer variable here, and I'll call it my int. So this is a complete, whoops, I don't know what I got there. This is a complete variable declaration. Now when I declare this variable, because this variable is an int data type, it's a value variable. And I'll say that now, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as time goes on. Now, I could also declare another variable, and I could set it equal to some value. So now I'm declaring my variable and giving it a name, and I'm giving it an initial value. When you're working with C#, integers and other numeric data type variables are automatically going to be initialized to 0, but the compiler is going to complain to you and make you initialize them. It won't let you use variables that haven't been initialized. So with Python, I could just come along and I could type another equals 50 times 20. And it would be, oh, another must be a number. I will allocate that variable for you, and I will use it to hold this result. With C#, I have to add one additional parameter, and that's the data type. So I would just have to say int beforehand so that it knows how to declare that variable. So I can declare that variable when I'm doing math too. So I could say this one equals 47 plus 58. And another thing that we could do is I could set an initial value equal to one of my other variables. So I can do all of that when I'm setting up my initial value. I could actually declare a variable within pretty much any line of code. So it used to be kind of common conventions that we would declare all our variables at the top of a method, at the top of a class, at the top of whatever. And you'll see that in general, but it's also pretty accepted to declare them as they're being used. So we'll kind of see it both ways. I'm going to save that. So as we're declaring variables, it's super easy. When you look at anything that wants you to declare some variables, remember, all you've got to do is specify the data type and give it a name. It's very, very simple. We don't have to have any extra stuff. The hardest thing to remember is to put a semicolon at the end. Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, I want to split up into the study groups so you guys can kind of talk to each other about your shared notes file and how you want to keep things going. And I know we should have done that a little bit earlier, but we'll do it now. Better late than never. So it is 9:01. Let's come back at 9:05 and we will split up. Districts is like a week or two. I think she's definitely using yesterday.
I just saw the stand outside, so I was curious.
It would be fun if you would do it.
Yeah.
You guys are getting together on your own. You're so good. Okay, so we got some groups. Let's see. Looks like you guys are doing this all on your own. I'm going to sit down and shut up. Kind of maybe elected leader, see who the The person is going to be in your study group that annoys everybody, asking if they need help with their assignment, stuff like that. Who's going to be your leader? Who's going to be your annoyer? Who's going to be your bodyguard? Anything else that you need? Where are we? Are you finding groups yourselves?
I don't know who your group is, but we claim this land for group 2. Yeah. I work good in this spot.
So I'm going to give you about 10 minutes. Like I say, just kind of organize with each other how you want these notes to be. They're going to be important to all of you if you get to use them on your unit exam. You want to make sure they're good. So make some decisions. I'm going to set the alarm for 10 minutes. Yes. Because I want them to be good. Remember, you don't want to make a new book. It's hard. You have to be careful to be selective about your data.
Because we're supposed to find objects that welcome to the room. Colonization at its finest.
What have we got? Let's see. Great teachers. You guys found each other.
Okay, so yeah, I just opened one up today. I had a couple of things that were most likely I want to add stuff as well. And mine examples, we did perfect background color example with the background color. And then she said that sometimes the mine might not have any arguments in it, so I put that in as well. String one piece of curly brackets.
Sebastian, you're in group 3. These guys.
But I got that example here, and then verbal declaration. One thing I don't have is those election calls. Yeah, output formatting. I don't have on there. Sure, the copy and paste it.
Can you guys all get to your notes, okay? Did you,
Yeah, we
set
have
up
our,
the sharing?
we have it. You get two groups. So on the left side, they'll be pictured. You guys see the next video. One's kind of awkward. Same idea. And then bottom left is flags. And they should just be shocking. Yeah, just for information. And lower right, I just click on the So I don't know if there's official names, but they're kind of close. We have a currency format, decimal, where you can see how many decimals I have. It's number digit format, we see digits I have. It's a number format, whatever it's all. Today, we got kind of most of this. Let's open up our other project just to make sure.
That's what they got.
You guys all want to record this previous stage of the class. Yeah. Who would you have for your Python? Would you have for your Python class? Yeah, we have We're taking that. We're taking this.
Ever been like
Okay, and let's see.
okay.
It's declaring the variable.
Hello.
So my group and I just had a quick question as far as like the collaborative notes thing. Is it okay if we decide to use OneNote outside of Canvas?
Sure.
And then if you ever need to like do a checkup on the group, you can just like,
That's
send a message to
fine.
one of us. We can just email a copy of the OneNote.
Yeah, you can sure do that. And I would have used when it just gets really slow. If I do the classroom
Yeah.
version, I've just had tons of trouble with it. So
Okay.
yeah,
Appreciate
that's fine. Having trouble creating these things anyways. Okay, we're about out of time. Now, as far as your group goes, let me get back there. Remember when you go to the people link and you look at the study groups, you can go to your group homepage. And on your group homepage, we want to use a collaboration document. So one of the people in the group can set it up, or I can set it up for you. But it's kind of giving me a hard time. So this group has decided they're going to use a OneNote document, which is fine, and they're going to share it amongst themselves. So you can use anything that you like, but if you use Canvas, you have this facility where you can create a document and you can share it amongst your group. That's the collaborations link of your group homepage. Now, my thoughts were if your group worked together on your notes, then you could use these notes as a resource in your unit exam. Because I think it's really important for us as CIS people to get good at making notes. Because what are you going to keep? What data are you going to not keep? You don't want to create a new 1,000-page book because that's not going to do you any good. So your shared notes can be used for the exam. That means those notes have to be notes. They could include some code snippets for sure, because that's what we're taking notes about. But I don't want to see any like actual test questions and answers. So that's that one we wanted to first. All right, so the rest of our time is lab time. If you would, with your study group or on your own, go to that second REPL and get started with that. I think it's lesson 3, and I'm calling it the second one, sorry. Lesson 03 of the REPL, and this one is going to be creating variables, using variables, doing some real basic math things. Now, I want you in your study groups because I want you to help each other. These things are hopefully not something that should take a huge amount of time. So again, if you get stuck on one, it's probably because of a curly brace or a semicolon or something like that. So I want you to reach out to your group and say, hey, help me, I don't want to be stuck here forever. So that's the only reason I'm asking you about your group. You could form a Zoom session if you wanted at home. You guys could do all of them together if you wanted. So it's up to you. I'm going to shut this off and leave it up to you and let me know if you need me to create you a collaboration document.
I read mine without it on the where's your circle?
This right here. Yeah.
There's something